I've set up this garden so that, well, kind of naturally set itself up this way so that, like, from this end where the compost is and everything, as you move through the garden this way, it's at like an ever so slight angle, so I can kind of flood irrigate, and the ducks absolutely love when I do that. They like to sit in it, eat out of it, and it floods from that particular spot because it built it up. It floods back towards these plants, and it also floods that way towards my tomato plants. They're terrified when I move around them because they don't remember being babies in my arms. Marigolds growing up morning glories growing up the fence. And look at this little tomato bush. Just gonna keep it. There's like so many blossoms on it. I'm like, wow, okay, let's pick tomatoes from this side of the fence. Sure. And I trimmed some sunflowers, so those are currently sitting in the pond, hoping they'll absorb some of that greenness. Basically, that's not how it works, but they'll take out some of the nitrates, which will be helpful and maybe hopefully survive. And hey, if they die, they'll drop their seed where I want them to drop their seed, so not a problem. This is still not landscaped because work in progress. Ignore that because also work in progress. And my mugwort here. Do you remember when I cut it to the ground? Because I cut it to the ground. And I was like, oh yes, I'm gonna cut it down. I know it'll grow back, but it'll give my lavender a chance to thrive. Well, nobody nope. And my chamomile has plummeted in health. And I've got a little sage bush over here that has also dried up. I actually haven't inspected it, so I don't know if it's the full bush because there was two. And that other one's doing so well that they might have just been too close because they naturally sowed and I didn't thin them very well. So they were right next to each other, and that might be that. There's a tomato, a red one. I can see it deep in there. There's a tomato bush right there along with the sunflower. You can see it kind of growing out right there. That's about as high as it's gotten so far because it's my tiny one. And those are little bush beans making their way out to where they can find some sun, because these sunflowers block most of the morning sun, but they also shade that end of my garden from, the heat of the day. And here's my corn. I had to take out one of the sunflower stalks. It's still kind of stumpy in there. Where is it? Oh, there it is. And I just trimmed that back, and hence all the sunflowers in the pond. I've got two peppers doing their best. These are also two peppers over here. Forgot about them. This one is not doing its best, but it is surviving, and that's all we can ask at this point. Oh yeah, so corn. I've got some corn growing, and that's just one of, I don't know, I'd say like a half dozen that I've spotted throughout both of the piles. And then here's that tomato bush that's not the one growing out. This tomato bush is more of a beefsteak bush, and it hasn't produced anything yet. My basil was trampled by the ducks, but is surviving just fine. Over here we have the Roma tomatoes. You can kind of see them there next to the marigolds. I don't know why I confuse the marigolds and the morning glories all the time. Like all the time. And so there's some cherry tomatoes in here too. I thought. But this is probably another beefsteak that just hasn't produced yet. Because there's 4 plants in here. And then 2 more pepper plants that are doing not great. Sorry, I didn't have them both in the picture. Oh, and amaranth is what's all throughout here. And this is a little lamb's quarters that hasn't been taken out yet. I could do it right now. I'm not going to. I don't care if it drops its seed. It's a fine cover crop. Then this area is kind of my mid space where I drop things right now because I'm going to plant it. It just hasn't happened yet. So, you see the ducks there enjoying their water. They get fresh water like this way once a day because it's really good for them. So this is kind of their moment before I totally put it where it needs to be to flood everything properly. And then over here in my, what used to be my tomato spiral once upon a time is now my pumpkin patch, though you can't really tell that. I just had to pull an entire vine that came from here all the way to here out because, well, I'm pretty sure squash bugs got to it. Which is sad because I do have a little pumpkin over here, right there, and it was on the vine, so I kind of cut the vine far back on both sides and hope it might survive because the tendrils sometimes put down roots and can keep the pumpkin alive off the vine. Potentially, maybe. Let's hope. I doubt it, but let's hope. And tomato bushes all throughout there. There's a pepper plant hidden right there. Pretty hard to see because of whatever this is. It's either the jack-o'-lanterns I planted or it's volunteer. It's kind of hard to tell the difference between the volunteers and the ones I intentionally planted at this point. And like there's finally one of the larger tomatoes. It's been growing for a while, but it's literally the only one I've received off of 4 plants. And we've already been picking the Roma tomatoes. We've already been picking some cherry tomatoes. So it's like lined with tomatoes, horseradish, a pepper, rhubarb, which is okay that it's hidden because it doesn't do well in the heat, if I'm recalling correctly. And then more tomatoes over there, also mostly speckled with lamb's quarters as the cover crop. Not intentional, it's just there's nothing else growing there as a cover crop that's not a like noxious weed, so got to keep the lamb's quarters until I can get a better cover crop down. And then of course these are still my carrots that seeded. I had a few onions, but those have all been picked, and I threw down mustard seed as a cover crop, so you can see it's starting to grow all through there. This is this year's carrots, which I have all of this bare dirt here because I already harvested. And right there I have another pepper plant, and that's a volunteer that we transplanted from out of the walkway. Don't know what it is. It seems to be vining. And then there's another volunteer over there that's not vining yet. Plant smaller. We shall see on that. I will take us back this way further, but let me turn back to this corn patch and show that like this is a volunteer plant. There's a few there. I thinned it, but there's some going that way, there's some going this way, there's some going that way. I'm pretty sure there's also even one going that way, but there was a volunteer in the middle of this patch, so who knows what these squash plants are. I figure worst case scenario, they'll be good Halloween decoration. And there is okra still throughout here. I'm not producing anything yet. I don't recall how long it takes. Seems to be doing really well, and I'm pretty happy about it. I would be stoked to be able to do okra. If it goes well this year, I'm going to do a lot because that would be great for curry, and I am excited. Okay, so I could explain all of this, but I'm going to do a different close-up after we just continue back to where we started over here. So, this is the back of the pumpkin patch. Okay, not quite where we started. I'm getting to it. See that squash bug? See it? It's right there. And a pumpkin though. There's probably a few pumpkins that I can't see. Oh, and you can see how this is flooding right now. It's actually flooding right into here. And so Like I was saying, this used to be my tomato spiral. It is still a spiral. I can see the water pooling up there as well. And so it's not a complete spiral, but it basically creates two main ditches that kind of make semicircles throughout here. And so it just creates this nice deep watering system for everything that exists here. And these seeds, these little flowers, black-eyed Susans, right? I think. I actually harvested those out of nature, just out and about. Hey. Sorry, they were eating my tomato plant because I cut them off from their water. And now they're like, what am I going to do with myself? They can walk around. Sorry if this is spinning your head around. Before we get back to everything else, here's my lovely compost. It's like so huge. I don't know if this really does it justice. I feel like it never does. And after winter, luckily, it'll be like half its size. But for now, not so much. So anyways, black-eyed Susans harvested while out and about on hikes and such. And it's just so pretty popping up through everything. And this water will fill both of these little retention areas, and they'll drain fairly fast once I turn the water off. But again, that's one of my ways of feeding everything here without getting it super wet. And my squash bug problem is out of control. I don't know if you can see the squash bugs that exist right there. Those are their eggs, and they're literally not even on my squash. They're that high up on my sunflowers because they just don't care. They just don't. I don't know. So cucumbers are growing all along the fence line. They're pushing away from the fence line, but hey, that's fine. I've got, these are all hot peppers, like chili peppers and jalapenos. So we put them at the back so that the kids would be less inclined to touch them when they grow. And this flower is one of these, and I don't know what it is because I didn't save the tags, I guess. And they're so odd but beautiful. And those ones could be prettier, but they have not been thriving. Are those petunias? That's a flower at least, right? I feel like I just made that up. Other than the fact that, you know, Harry's aunt is Petunia in Harry Potter. But I digress. I'm hoping for a late harvest on the cucumbers because they were planted from seed in June, pretty sure. The peppers I bought and the tomatoes I bought, literally everything else is from seed. Over here is where I have my wildflower seed, and I mean that as in both wildflowers that came like in this wildflower butterfly mix from Walmart, and also natural wildflowers. So I think these yellow ones are, can somebody tell me what they are? Because I feel like they're calendula and I'm just not recognizing it. But I planted those from seeds I had, which is why I don't recall what they are because I never label my stuff. And I get rid of all these dandelion type things when I find them. This thing is doing so pretty. And the flowers are actually not my favorite, like, part of the garden, but at the same time they're just so beautiful that it makes for just like a really nice area. And then this is more amaranth and a little bit of lamb's quarters. There's some carrots that have self-sowed from last season because this is where I tossed all my dried carrots so that they could do that as like kind of a cover crop breaks up the soil when you harvest them. So green beans, no. These are more dragon tongue bush beans. Those are like the bush beans that I had over by my herb spiral. This is a volunteer squash. It's vining. It's not producing yet. Squash bugs got to it, but not completely, so it's doing okay. I was hoping for some hollyhocks through here because I definitely planted a bunch of those, but it hasn't happened. But I do have some things growing that aren't quite easy to see. And so I'm thinking hopefully next month I'll have something more and better to show. That's the amaranth going to seed because I already cut off its big heads that it was forming, and it's like, oh my gosh, no, I want to seed, stop it. And it's doing its best to go to seed as soon as possible. Here's my other corn. I wonder if it would be taller if I had trimmed my sunflowers, but this year has kind of all been about water retention, so I wanted shade. That's why it's so intensely packed with cover crops. And also for my corn, I wanted wind protection. Now this is definitely really intensely packed together, and would I do that again? Probably not, but at the same time it's pretty much what I did there, and those seem well off. So I'm thinking it's a sun issue. And as you can see, there's amaranth growing among it. I'll show you the bigger heads, like, so they grow these big heads of seed, and you could use it like a grain, to my knowledge. I want to have a cherry tomato right there. It's my big, this is my best tomato bush here. Look how tall it is. It's all the way up here. Oh my goodness, it's taller than me. So it's got to be like 6 foot tall, which, you know, there's bigger. But I have not pruned this very well, so I'm just impressed by the lack of work that's been put in to how well it's turning out, I guess. There's lots of tomatoes. This has been producing cherry tomatoes for I don't know how long. It's been so nice. And I thought we might be able to see the rhubarb. Apparently, I have not been out here though. There it is. No? Yes. Yes. Sorry, I didn't even have you on it, I don't think. I was too preoccupied. So, look, so there's my squash vining out, right? Well, there's my rhubarb. It just kind of looks like another squash. And I gotta say, it actually looks the best it has looked all season because something was eating it for the longest time. And honestly, I have so many bugs. I honestly don't know how I don't have more dead plants. I know that's not the thing to admit, but seriously. So let's see. Just throw your head around to here. More of the dragon tongue beans. There was a green bean over here. It perished. All my green beans have perished. I have no green beans left. I don't know what I was thinking earlier. Oh, look at that. The little buggers. Oh, look at that. Hi. Can you go kill the squash bug, please? Yeah. Build a nest. Do you do that? Maybe it's... Where'd he go? That guy. Maybe it's those guys.